Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Tiger Talk series. I'm Lindsay Bray. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Parent and Family Services. And today we have Betsy Lowe and Dr. Russell Deaton with us from the Herff College of Engineering. So they're here to talk a little bit about what it means to be an engineering student, and ways students can succeed in that college. So thank you all so much for joining us. Betsy, will you introduce yourself a little bit more for us?
Sure. Thanks, Lindsay. First, we're excited to have this opportunity to talk and showcase engineering a little bit more to you with our parents. So like Lindsay said, my name is Betsy Lowe, and I am the college advisor within engineering specifically. And what that means, I work primarily with our incoming first-year students and our incoming transfer students. And they have me as their advisor for roughly the first year or until they finish Calculus 1. So if they are finished with their first year but still working on Calculus 1, they'll still hang out with me as their advisor. On the back end, I certify graduation. So I see them on the front end, and then I get to see them successfully finish and certify graduation on the back end. I've been at the university, I don't know if you want to know this, but I have been at the university for a little while. I started here in 2007 and have worked in various roles between admissions, the Honors College, some general advising, and I have landed here in engineering. So I certainly don't know everybody or everything, but have some good contacts across campus after a few years.
Yes, Betsy is a fantastic partner on our campus. And Dr. Deaton, would you introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about the College of Engineering and what it means to be a student in your college?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Russell Deaton. I'm a professor of electrical and computer engineering. I'm also the associate dean of the Herff College of Engineering. I'm a native Memphian, and I also got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Herff College of Engineering. I started my career here as an assistant professor, went to University of Arkansas for 12 years, came back in 2012 as chair of electrical engineering. So always good to be back home. So at the Herff, I also teach the freshman courses, so I probably have run into your students at some point or another. I wanted to introduce a little bit about the Herff College. We're really committed to our students' success, and the first starting point of that is that we have what's called a growth mindset in the college, as opposed to a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is, for example, somebody saying, "Oh, I'm not good at math." A growth mindset is saying, "Oh, I didn't do well on that test. What do I need to do to get better?" So we try to be very intentional about leading our students through the things they need to do to get better at what is a very difficult academic program in engineering. So the first thing we tell them is go to class. And that's the single biggest factor in success in engineering. The second thing we tell them is to approach it like it's a real job. And that it usually takes 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour you're in class to really master the material in engineering. So they really need to get in the habit of engaging in that deliberate practice on their own, meaning in their dorm rooms or in their room at home and doing their homework. And that's really important. That our dean, Rick Swiger, always says it's being an engineering student is like having a full-time job. And therefore, for some of we know there's all sorts of financial constraints and that students have to work, but I think it's important for parents to understand the demands that our students are under in the classroom. Some of the things that we do to help students succeed is we have a very active tutoring program that's overseen by our Director of Student Services, Isaiah Serbrook. We have an academic coach in the college. And this person, what they do is when a student has any sort of difficulty, be it academic or personal or health related, they kind of do triage on that. But and also for academics, they just kind of check in and make sure, what is the source of the difficulty? How much are you studying? Have you reached out to the professor? Have you tried tutoring? Do you know that these resources are available to you? Most of the tutors of course, this semester, the tutoring has been online. A lot of the tutors are engineering students because they tend to be the best. A lot of our student organizations have study nights that students can attend, even on Zoom these days. And in our freshman engineering class, we have a lot of student guides and a lot of help resources available to students. So, so I think I just wanted to emphasize for y'all that we're really committed to our students' success, every single one of our students' success, and have a lot of programs in place to help them be successful. I guess now we answer your questions, right?
I do want to piggyback real fast about the tutoring. It is important to know that the tutoring's not just for the engineering classes. So our engineering tutors can also help in the appropriate physics and chemistry and the math courses that they are taking. So we know the university has ESP, the Educational Support Program, but also our engineering tutoring specifically can help in those classes that the students are going to take. So they have a couple of different places they can get that help there.
Yeah, and I think engineering students really always love the extra support that they can get from your college and all the things that you help them with in such a demanding majors. So can you talk a little bit about so that academic coach a little bit more? Is that somebody they could go to if they're struggling with their coursework, or is that somebody who they're wondering about like if they maybe want to switch areas or something like that? How does that work for a student if they're kind of struggling just a little bit?
So we send to all of our students that the coach is available to help them. Specifically, students get referred to her if a student gets put on an early alert. This is a university program that actually we started in the college before the university started doing it. And so what we try to encourage faculty to do is within the first month of students, actually the first 2 weeks, to try to put an early alert in for a student if we detect signs of trouble, especially for freshmen. For example, let's say we've been 2 weeks in class and the student has already missed 3 classes. Well, that's a bad sign. So we will issue an early alert and the student will get referred to the academic coach to figure out maybe what's going on. Betsy will also get notified. And in our Engineering 1010 class, which is the course that all the freshman engineers take, we issue regular alerts. We just don't do it at the beginning, but if we ever see a sign that maybe a student's struggling with a particular topic material, then we might issue an alert for them to say, go to tutoring specifically. And we try to incentivize them by giving them a bonus quiz if they'll attend a tutoring session or something like that. In terms of switching majors, I think Betsy is the place to start there. Betsy, you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so our academic coach, if she were to, we work pretty closely. So if we, as you can imagine, so if she were to have a conversation with a student about that particular thing, she'll make sure and refer them back to me. Or if she, has some questions about where to send them, things like that. So we do work closely on that. If a student is already thinking, I want to change, then I would have them send directly to me. Every major and every college does advising slightly differently. And so I like to have conversations with students, even if they already know what they do want to change into, to make sure that we get them to the right place. So each college, we cannot change their majors into something outside of our area. So if somebody came to me and said, I really want to go major in the College of Business, I wouldn't be able to change their major to the College of Business, but I can send them to the correct place to be able to do that. So I like to have those conversations. And sometimes they're not ready to change yet. It's just a matter of figuring out, are we in the right area of engineering? Are we in, maybe you'd rather be in engineering technology, which is not as math intensive. And so I would just, if they call your office, or if you guys who are on the call right now have questions about that, I would send them directly to me first, and then we can kind of figure out where they are.
I would also say that, every engineering student has encountered difficulties along the way. And we do try to arrange opportunities for our students to speak with our alumni or with upperclassmen. Isaiah started a program with the help of Sam Horm, our president of our IEEE student chapter, kind of pairing upperclassmen with freshmen. And part of that is just so, oh yeah, Calculus 1, I didn't do very well in that either, but I stuck with it and made it through it, and things have gotten better. So there's always hurdles, I think, that in engineering that students encounter along the way. So, we don't force them to stay, but we try to encourage them to persist.
Yeah, and those are great services to be able to connect students and help them understand that their situation is not abnormal, that so many others have gone through this as well. So can you talk a little bit about kind of what it means for your student to kind of prepare for the next year and the next semester? So maybe, Betsy, when should they meet with their advisor for each semester, or kind of as they're preparing for the next 3 or 4 years while they're here?
Absolutely. So I mentioned in the beginning that the students will start with me. And then what happens after that first year is they will transition and have a faculty advisor assigned to them in their departments. And so in terms of timing, it really will depend on if they're advised by myself or Drew Garth, who is one of our first year instructors, or if they're advised by a faculty member, because Drew and I have a slightly larger caseload than some of our faculty do in terms of advising. Now, obviously, they're doing classes and research and other things as well. So they may not start as early as advising as maybe Drew and I would. So every semester and every academic year, though, follows really the same trend. And so for the spring semester, registration typically always opens in the first week or two of November. And so if we're talking about right now, this semester, it's already time to get advised. And so advisors tend to start maybe mid to late September, but definitely by what would traditionally be a fall break, about mid-October. So if it is mid-October and you have not talked with your advisor or gotten a message from your advisor, or you have not set up an appointment, then you're already late. So, so for our first year students who are meeting with Drew and I, right now really is the time to make sure you're scheduling your appointment. We use a system called Navigate, and Navigate, we will automatically send them a message to their U of M email. So it's really important that they're checking that U of M email for a lot of reasons, but we will automatically send them an invitation to schedule an appointment. So there'll be a link in the email. All they have to do is click it, and it'll take them to all the open availabilities. And this does take into account any class that they're in. So if they're trying to schedule an appointment during a class time, the system's not going to let them, which keeps them from missing class or missing an appointment, right? And so I have already sent out my campaign. So I actually started advising today, and I'm already booked through the first week of October. So we do fill up pretty quickly just because of timing. So make sure if you're hearing this to kind of prompt your student to say, hey, have you heard from any advisor yet to schedule an appointment? If not, check your email or touch base with your advisor and make sure that you're doing that. In the spring semester, typically registration will open in April. So we're looking at November in the fall to talk about, to register for spring classes. And then you're talking about April, that's when you would register for summer and for the following fall semester. So in the spring, it's a little bit different. We will still send out a campaign. We'll still start probably about mid-February to start advising. And at that point, we would discuss the summer courses if they think they may want to do a summer class and the fall classes. So we'll cover both of those. The earlier we can get them in, the better, mainly just so that as things change and evolve, they can already be looking at course schedules and timing and kind of have an idea of when they want to take classes, so that when registration opens, they're not trying to get in touch with us on that day, because we'll have a lot of phone calls and emails and issues going on that day to actually get registered and cleared for advising. Now, if they've scheduled an appointment and it's not until, middle of October, there are some things that students should be doing prior to their advising appointment. And so one thing that would be really helpful for my first year students and my first year parents, this summer orientation, as you guys know, was all online. And so one thing that was a little bit trickier was working through some pending AP advanced placement scores and some pending dual enrollment credits. And so if you could encourage your student to check on their unofficial transcript that they can access on their student portal, I would have them go back and check. Do I see my dual enrollment credits posted? Do I see my AP credits posted? And if not, they should email our admissions office or use the new ticketing system through Top Desk that they can access through their student portal and ask about those, because we want to make sure that we're not missing any credits so that we can advise appropriately. The second thing that students should be doing is, when all of us were in school, we had a catalog. That was a printed book that you could flip through. And if you're like me, you dog-eared it and you knew exactly what you needed to do, you're reading course descriptions and you're ready to go. We don't print catalogs anymore, but there is an active live catalog on the U of M website. And we have translated that information also into Navigate. So you've heard me say Navigate about 4 different times now. So if you're not aware, that's a really key system that we need to have our students get familiar with. On the Navigate site, there's actually something called a planner or an academic plan. And it has basically from the very start to the very end, a 4-year plan in the order that they should be thinking about taking classes. On the planner, they can read course descriptions, they can look at what is required for prerequisites or co-requisite classes, and they can actually plan out the next few semesters on the planner. And so what I am encouraging students to do is look at that and go ahead and plan your spring semester before we ever meet, so that when we are meeting, we can have some deeper conversations outside of just what classes you need, but also think about the next step and some other things.
I think those are thank you.
Yeah.
Great points on how your student can prepare and be prepared for their advising appointment too, and some good nudges for our parents to be able to ask their students some questions along the way as well. So speaking of advising, often, particularly for parents who maybe went to college, who were not engineering majors, they got to have a little bit of leeway in their schedule and got to pick some maybe interesting classes. What does that look like for engineering students? Do they have a pretty set schedule that they have to follow, or do they get to make a few more do they get to make any elective choices?
It's pretty rigid curriculum. And especially in the first 2 years, the only really choice they'll have is what general education courses to take. When they get to be seniors in their discipline, they will have an opportunity to take some electives in the discipline. Engineering, we really don't have any free electives. But also, all the engineering programs tend to have very rigid prerequisite structures, meaning you have to take and pass Calculus 1 before you can take Calculus 2 or Dynamics. And therefore, the students also that's part of that plan of study that Betsy mentioned. They need to pay attention to these prerequisite chain and make sure that they're taking courses when they are offered. Otherwise, they might get behind. We do encourage the programs to offer every required course every semester, but sometimes that's just not possible.
Yeah. And to echo that, and I talk about this a little bit at orientation with our freshmen, but the other big difference in some of the other majors is that our general education courses are sprinkled out throughout their 4 years versus at the beginning. And so it's not uncommon to see a junior or a senior taking their last couple of social sciences or their last couple of humanities courses. So we tend to still have those same general education requirements. They're just not all front loaded. We have to trickle those and put them in. Basically what Dr. Deaton was saying, because of needing to make sure that we have our calculus and our physics and our chemistry to be able to keep going with the actual engineering curriculum. But there's not a whole lot of free elective space. And I think that is one thing that we certainly have conversations with students about, you know, when we talk about minors and other areas and how does that really play into their 4-year degree plan. It's just helping them understand that those things are options and we can certainly do it, but it may add a whole other 18 credits to their degree path because no one takes a language in engineering unless they want to. And so things like that are conversations that we can certainly have to help them understand hours and what is required and how to bring in some extra electives if they want to.
And Dr. Deaton, you mentioned this a little bit, but how can students kind of get involved with each other outside of the classroom? Particularly right now being more remote. I know y'all have a few things in person right now.
Right. Well, I think being a member of a student organization is really important for our undergraduate engineers. And a lot of our student organizations are actually having online activities right now, like our National Society for Black Engineers does a study night. I know our IEEE student chapter, which is electrical and computer engineering, is having a lot of professional development activities and things like that. So those are all good things that students can do that contribute to their success. They feel like they're part of the engineering community and they can hear from other students. I also encourage, especially the freshmen. Upperclassmen have kind of figured it out and they have people that they study with, but I think for freshmen as well, harder now, but we're trying to do some things in Engineering 1010 to help this is, schedule some online study sessions with people. Or if you can social distance and wear a mask, get together and study together. Having a study group is also a really important contributor to student success, and we encourage them all to do that. So I don't know if Isaiah's on the call. I don't know if he's paying attention, but if he wants to say anything else about student orgs, if he's blocked out.
No, here he is.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Dean. Hi, everyone. Isaiah Serbert, Director of Student Services. Yeah, our student orgs are doing everything they can virtually, of course, looking for that moment when they can be a little more in person, but they're still meeting, looking at going to competitions virtually. I know our Society for Women Engineers are going to their conference virtually. They're still preparing for competitions in the spring in hopes that there might be some social distance abilities for them to still compete, like a robotics team, which actually falls under IEEE, or our EERI team, which is our Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, Earthquake Structures team, or Steel Bridge team. So yeah, the student orgs are still very active, even in a virtual environment, making sure that students are being connected not only to their program, but to each other and to their faculty advisors and the community as a whole.
And if a student or a parent wants to encourage, is the best way to do that through Tiger Zone or?
Yes, through Tiger Zone. We have an engineering student council that helps bring all of the student orgs together that are dedicated to engineering students. And then they are also the ones who help plan the funding that comes from our dean every year and making sure that the student orgs, what are they needing and how can they be successful. So the Engineering Student Council's president is Julia Bird. Her information is on Tiger Zone. So if they don't know, like, hey, I'm in, biomedical engineering, what are the student orgs dedicated just towards biomed? Or, do you have a student org dedicated towards, whatever degree program or background that they have, we can direct them through that. But Tiger Zone is definitely the #1 place they should be looking for student orgs.
They're also listed on our website, on the engineering specific website. And there's Isaiah, roughly 18 to 20 specific engineering organizations. Is that about accurate?
Yeah, we've lost a few, but yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah. So, and I would say too, just to brag on some things that we do. So traditionally in the fall semester, we will do kind of our own engineering welcome week, not to interfere with what the university is doing, but we'll have some activities that are happening during that first week or two. And one of those things is we usually have a picnic lunch, and all the organizations get to come out and set up tables, kind of mirror what the bigger RSO, Registered Student Organization Fair, does at the university, but specifically over kind of our side of campus for our engineering organization. So fingers crossed that we will be able to move back towards that next fall for any prospective families out there, or just for current students who didn't get the chance to have that experience for this fall. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again. So I'm being hopeful, right?
Yes, yes. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So that's a great way for them to get engaged and involved. But obviously they still want to prep for what life after college looks like. So how can they do that while they're in school right now? Do y'all have a career fair or a career specialist or anything like that to kind of help them get ready for life after college?
Yeah, Miss Shalia Moses is our career specialist in Herff College of Engineering. So we have a dedicated career specialist. We have a career fair twice a year in the fall and the spring. In a couple of weeks, I think it's October 9th or something like that, we're having a virtual career fair. In our in-person career fairs, we have had up to 70 companies. So there's those opportunities. We also have a fairly active internship program in the college that Shalia also manages. These are formal internships that companies that come to us and that we partner with to either partially fund or to manage the internship program for them. I would hazard a guess that 85% of our students do some sort of internship, because we also have a lot of students that just do informal internships, meaning they are working part-time at some company, because our students tend to be very much in demand. There are also research opportunities for undergraduates in the College of Engineering, and the best way to get started with that is to talk to an individual professor about the research that they do. You've had a class with a professor, you like them or enjoyed their class, go talk to them about their research. And our faculty are always looking for undergraduates that contribute towards the research in their labs. We have a lot of students doing research in labs.
That's really great for our students to get that experience and be part of that. In terms of the career fair and kind of those internships, do students need to do anything in particular to prepare for that? Like if they have an outside one or something like that, do they need to register that with the college, or if they have an opportunity with an outside company, they can kind of go forth on that?
Well, they're certainly free to go forth on their own. We do have certain mechanisms to give them academic credit for that. So they might want to let us know about it to see if they can get some academic credit, like a engineering elective. Mm-hmm. Again, Miss Moses is the person to go to. We also have Jada Meeks, who is from the University of Career Services that works closely with engineering. And so contacting Miss Moses, they also will help students with their resumes. We do mock interview workshops. We do elevator speech workshops. A lot of our industrial partners will come and actually do mock interviews or review resumes for us. And so the first step for the student, I would think, is to get that resume in shape and talk to Ms. Meeks or Ms. Moses, and they're glad to help with that and have been doing it a long time and know what they're doing.
And I would say too, with the career fair specifically, one thing that it's encouraged even at the freshman year to go to the career fair. because, start thinking about what kind of internships, start thinking about what kind of companies you want to do. I think one thing that I learned when I came over here is that even in that first year, it's important to come dressed and ready to go for the career fair. And so I think a lot of times students are thinking, well, I'm not going to get an internship or a job for the next 3 years. I'm not really going to worry about that. But we do encourage them to come business professional, ready to go for the career fair, so that if they do make a great connection, they've already had some initial point of contact there and they can remember them, right? Now, I don't know what the Zoom on the virtual career fair will look like. I'm sure we'll have some business on top and some shorts on the bottom, but still coming prepared to look the part for them. And just to echo, making sure that they have their resume looked over. Both ladies have been doing this for some time. And so, there's, as we know, with different jobs and different programs, there's always keywords that are a little bit better on your resume for looking at different types of jobs. And so having those experts look at that would definitely be helpful.
That's great. Yeah, it's never too early to get started on a career because 4 years goes by really, really fast. So students in engineering have to kind of prepare for a fundamentals of engineering exam.
Yes.
What does that look like for students, and how should they be preparing for that now? And what should parents be aware for that to kind of help them or nudge them along the way?
Yeah, so the FE exam, or Fundamentals of Engineering exam, is an exam that is quite common, and it's a step towards professional licensure as an engineer. You cannot become a professional engineer unless you have taken and passed the FE exam. So that's the primary reason that it's there, and we encourage students to do it. It's run through an organization called NCEES, and I can't remember what that acronym stands for at the moment. And so you would go to their website and apply for the FE exam, and it's all online. It's done at a testing center online. The reason to do it as an undergraduate, we typically encourage students to do it, in their senior year, and that's because it covers fundamentals of engineering, and it is discipline specific. So mechanical engineering exam is different than the civil engineering exam. And so we encourage students to do it as seniors, because if they wait 5 years, then they may have forgotten all the stuff they need to know to take and pass the exam. It's also an important measure of quality for us. All of our engineering programs, including engineering technology, are accredited by ABET, Engineering Accreditation Organization, and therefore the FE exam gives us a nationally normed exam that we can see how our graduates stack up against other programs. And also the state uses it as part of our funding formula, so even more reason for us to pay some attention to it. It tends to be more important in some disciplines than other. I think in civil engineering and mechanical engineering, it's almost required. It is required in civil engineering, highly encouraged in mechanical. Electrical computer kind of depends on what you end up doing. Biomedical maybe less important, but we encourage all of our students to do it, because you never know if you want to pursue that licensure down the road, get the FE done, get it out of the way, and then you don't have to worry about it. And it is a credential. It is a legitimate national credential to have on your resume.
And there are a few of the departments that will have it tied into one of their last classes. So not necessarily as a requirement, but for example, in civil, if the student takes the FE and passes it, they can actually apply for credit by exam and not even have to register for that particular class. Or if they're in that particular class and while they're in it, they take the FE and they pass it and they show the score, then they've passed the class already. And so as they get into their junior and senior year, each, like Dr. Deaton said, each major is a little bit different, but there are some that have that part of kind of their review class in that senior year.
So if one of our students takes their FE in their senior year and passes it and presents that to us, we will pay for all of their costs associated with that attempt. So that includes the cost of the attempt. It's first time taking it, first time passed, we will pay for. And we will also pay for any prep materials that they may have used, like practice exam, or certain textbooks, things like that.
It's a great incentive to get it done and pass it on the first time.
Yep.
So one of the last questions we have is about graduate school. So if a student has the thought that, you know, maybe they want to get some more education and go on to graduate school, is there anything they need to do in particular while they're in undergrad to prepare for that, or anything special they should be aware of?
Well, I think first of all, they should consider applying for our accelerated bachelor's to master's program in engineering. Every single one of our engineering majors has what we call an ABM program. And the way that works is when a student is a junior, and if they have, I think it's a 3.25 GPA, they can work with their department to apply for the ABM program. And what that allows them to do is to take 9 hours in their senior year that will apply to both, I think it's up to 12, excuse me, we just changed that. It's up to 12 hours in the senior year that can apply to both the undergraduate degree and the master's degree. So then if they were to continue on in the master's program, the idea is that you can get a bachelor's and a master's degree in 5 years. And our best students do that. A lot of our best students do that. Of course, a lot of our best students get really high paid jobs and then leave. But, but in terms in general in graduate school, I think getting hooked in to a faculty member's research is important, because when you apply to a graduate program, I think that's an important thing to have on your application. We have undergraduate students in the past here who have published research articles in well-known, reputable scientific journals. Having that on your academic credentials allows you to get into better graduate schools and to get assistantships. I also say, really, nobody in engineering should pay for graduate school. They should be paying you to go to graduate school on research assistantships. Of course, you will have to take the GRE, most likely prepare for the graduate record exam. Depending on where you're applying, there might be you might have to take the electrical engineering specialist subject area test. And of course, having that GPA, paying attention to the GPA is important for admission to graduate school.
That's some really great advice. I think, hey, if they can get 2 degrees in 5 years, that's fabulous. We always love that one, don't we? So one of the things that always parents want to know about as well is scholarships and financing. So are there any extra scholarships that students can apply for once they're in the college? And how do they go about doing that? And how does that kind of work? And what do they need to do to keep those scholarships?
Well, there are some scholarships that they can apply for once they're in the college. We actually have a very large scholarship program for incoming freshmen. That's where most of our scholarships are. But there are departmental scholarships that occasionally will be open. And so the best way to kind of find out about those is to work with their departments. In addition, we have in the College of Engineering what's called it's the Jarvis Jeffrey Completion Scholarship Program. It's named after a mechanical engineering student who had some severe health obstacles in his path, and he was very dedicated and committed to getting his degree. Unfortunately, he passed away before that happened. And so just in kind of honor of his grit and perseverance, this completion scholarship was named. And what it does is that for students that are within 3 semesters of graduation, maybe gone through all their financial aid, have don't have a lot of options available for helping, they can apply for this scholarship, and it's designed to kind of give them that little boost over the finish line. And it's competitive. I never am able to give enough, but it is there. We give 5 to 10 every semester. And they're small amounts, but sometimes at that point, a little bit goes a long way. And also probably if your students have questions about scholarships, they should email me.
Yeah, for our students who maybe are in their first year and they're just starting out on their engineering scholarship, I think important things for them to remember right off the bat is GPA. We are checking that. And then we need to see that they're making progression in the major. And so, sometimes if you haven't changed your major yet, but perhaps you're not taking any classes in engineering, like we still look at that kind of stuff. So we just want to make sure that your GPA is staying up and that you're making progression towards whatever that engineering major is.
And it tends to be 3.0, 3.25, 3.5, something like that. Also wanted to mention that we employ a lot of our own undergraduates. We hire a lot of our own undergraduates to help out with the freshman class. Isaiah hires undergraduates as ambassadors for the college. So we hire undergraduates as tutors for the college, university. So there's, beyond scholarships, there are lots of opportunities for kind of work study that are available to, especially to our students, because they can tutor for anything. So.
And that's a great way for them to build their network and get to know people, other students, other professors, Isaiah, Betsy, everybody else, get to know everybody a little bit more and build that network. So that's a great point. Well, that is all of the questions we have. Are there any last pieces of advice that you have for parents out there of engineering students to kind of help them help their student at this point? Betsy, you want to go first?
Sure. I would just encourage you to encourage them to reach out to us. I think one of the biggest things students are a little bit nervous to do is to call or email us. And so, and that includes me, Isaiah, but definitely their professors. And so, Dr. Deaton, I hear him on the phone with families and with students all the time. Like the professors want to talk to the students. I think this semester in particular is probably a little bit tougher. And so we want you to reach out. We want you to go to office hours, whether that's via Zoom or a phone call or in person, if we ever get back to that. And so just if there is a question or there is a concern, making sure they ask for help. There are a lot of resources out there that we've talked about, but often we can tell you about them and show you where to get them, but the student really needs to make the initiative to take advantage of those. So as a parent, really encourage them. Say, hey, have you emailed Betsy? Like, have you talked to her? Have you asked her what to do? Like, really encourage that. The other thing I would just say for just for the time that we're in currently, I think I've had quite a few students who are just kind of unsure about life in general, classes, the major. And so, if they have been showing a true interest in engineering and they're still doing well in the classes, I really would encourage them to give this engineering curriculum a full year before changing their mind. I've talked to a few students recently, and I think it's just really hard to really understand what it's going to be like in one semester, especially if we are virtual. Now some people will come in and say, no, like, I absolutely know this is not what I want to do. And that's okay. But I think if they're on the fence, encourage them, like I said, to continue with it. Let's give it one more semester. Let's see if we can get into the classroom. Reach out to their faculty. A lot of them are in a first intro class of their specific major. So they're all taking the engineering 1010, but they're also in an intro class for mechanical or biomed or civil. Reach out to those faculty members and just say, hey, can I have a conversation about what this really is going to be like? I want to make sure I'm in the right spot, just so they can hear more from faculty about what is to come. And to hang in there for you guys, I am a parent. I have a 5th grader, and we are virtually schooling. So I know that it is not really our favorite, but hang in there and we can do this. And I keep telling students, like, hey, just think about how much better it's going to be next semester, right? Like, you already have gone through a tough part of it. So just hang in there and give yourself some grace too. So.
Yeah, I would echo what Betsy said. I think the University of Memphis does a great job of having all sorts of help and support services for students. And I think our challenge is always getting the students to take advantage of it. So ask for help if you need it. Also, encourage your students they're going to have to work hard. And I think as parents, acknowledging the amount of time they need to put into their studies is important. And, but I think I'm proud of the Herff College of Engineering, and I think we do a great job of helping our students be successful. And I think we're pretty open to both them and to parents if there are issues or problems that we have to work through. Just ask for help.
I think that's amazing advice for all of our students, but particularly engineering students. Is yes, ask for help. Help your student understand that it's okay to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with struggling. I'm sure a lot of your students did really well in high school and didn't struggle as much, and so college does get to be a little bit more of a struggle than they're used to. So definitely for those parents, just help them through that and help them learn that it's okay, and they'll pick themselves back up and keep going. Well, thank you both so much. Oh,
hey, Lindsay,
yes.
I have one more plug just in case. Always admissions on the brain, right? Just in case we do have any prospective families who are listening, next week, the main U of M admissions office is actually going to highlight the College of Engineering. So if you have additional interest in knowing more about, and you don't have a current student yet, make sure you're following our main admissions office. I think they're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Memphis Admissions. And some of our ambassadors will actually take over their Instagram page at some point next week. And so if you want to kind of see a life in the day of an engineering student, it's going to be out there. So stay tuned. We're excited about that opportunity also.
That's really fun. And I think current parents can kind of get a sense of what it's like too. So right now.
That's true. Yeah. They may even see their student and they didn't even know it. Who knows?
Yeah, I think for parents out there, the best way to see campus sometimes is actually just to follow us all on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever your method is, and you get real glimpses. And I know we get great phone calls from parents or emails, and they're like, "That's my kid," which I always love seeing. So yeah. Well, thank you both so much for joining us for this. I think you provided some amazing information, and I know our parents really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and thank you parents for joining us.
Thank you guys.